Wonderful, wonderful. Well, hold on just a moment. I'm going to make sure that I have got like my big meta question in front of me. So, I would love to hear a little bit about you. And I'm really very interested in what it is that you see that you'd love to see more of in the women who are really, wanting to show up in a way that is powerful and promotable. But some of them may, and some of them may not. So tell me a little bit about you to begin with.
I'm the first person in my family to be born in the United States. So I have two older brothers. They were born in South Korea. My parents moved to the United States. They immigrated in 1977. And then I was born in 1979. So I'm the first one in my line, in my family tree to be born here.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up at that time, it was a really different time. It was very, it was very different than what I know today. I think a lot of what I learned about America, even though I was born American, it's still it's a different kind of a journey when you're in an immigrant family. So that was
first generation really is a very different experience.
Yeah, and it was at a time when in 1977 when they immigrated, even though Vietnam had ended, years before that, it was still the freshest thing in people's mind. And at that time, they were kind of the enemy. And I grew up in a town that really didn't have any minorities at all, and everyone just thought of us as the enemy. And it was kind of growing up in that sort of era, not really having any friends growing up because nobody wanted to be our friends. And I don't necessarily, and even then I knew people didn't all hate us. There's always going to be that, but there was the fear of being associated with somebody that everybody hated. So that was something that we grew up with. The cons of that are pretty obvious. But beyond the obvious pieces of the cons is that, I guess I'll just go into the pros because I think the cons are pretty obvious. The pros of it all were that we were very close. I have very close relationships with my brothers, even though the oldest one's 7 years older than me and the next one's 3 years older than me. We're like best friends to this day because we were the only friends that we had.
Uh-huh.
And then, another pro with that is that we were exceedingly resilient, because we had to be, our family, the way that I grew up, we fought for each other, in every way, financially, what we could emotionally carry, we knew the more that we could do, the less somebody else had to do. So that made us very strong. And I think one of the pros and cons of it, I guess the blend, is that we became very self-reliant to the point where it's okay if I don't socialize with people at all. I'm kind of okay to be, by myself. And it's probably a little too much on that extreme. I think I'm fine when I socialize with people, but I almost prefer not to. And I would think that that's kind of a con and a pro. It's pro because you're not very needy in that direction, but then it's a con because, human interaction is good.
Yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So you're fine either way. And yeah, I get that. I get how isolating that can be. And, as a white woman in America, I'm just going to offer my apologies for what people who look like me were not particularly kind to you all. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, well, I guess even then I knew without having to be told that not everybody was this way. And I will tell you that there was always somebody along the way that for every one of us in my family, and it wouldn't just be one person, but it was a small percentage of people, very small. And it wasn't always the outspoken ones. It usually never was. That there was always somebody who was an amazing soul who would do something. And like, you know, I remember those people because it was at great risk to themselves, great risk in that they didn't know how other people were going to view them when they kind of extended that, you know, that handout to us in terms of just being our friend or, you know, inviting us over for dinner or something like that. That those types of things were huge. And so there was always someone and even in the worst parts of it all, there was always somebody. And they were very brave. I think they're brave souls. And they just really exist in small amounts, I think, in any era of time. So I knew just even based on that not everybody was going to be that way. It was just human nature. You're going to have your few that are extreme, and then you're going to have a majority of people who are, for lack of a better way to say it, weak, and they can't bear to be associated or help because they don't want the repercussions of it. Yeah. And then there are the very few that, again, are brave.
Right. And did you live in, what size town did you live in?
I'm sorry, what's the question? How
many people were in the town that you lived in? Was it big or small?
It was outside of, it was a suburb outside of Philadelphia. So you'd think that is very kind of like a diverse area, and it really wasn't, because the suburb that I grew up in at the time, there were a lot of Klansmen. There were a lot of neo-Nazis at the time in the school district that I grew up in. And then, you know, you could go down not too far, and then I guess in other school districts there were some more, like there was a little bit more diversity. I'm really not sure what the reason was for my area to be not as diverse, but my parents selected that area because it was a better education, and that was ultimately what was important to them. And the rest we would have to deal with.
Yeah, I get that. Yikes. Those folks are scary. Even to me, they're scary. I go, please up-level your heart. So, my mind. And I get that. I didn't come to terms with my own racial privilege until just recently. Because I had to. My daughter-in-law is from Zambia, and you know, I thought that I was a nice, progressive, you know, welcoming lady, and you know, I found out that I had a lot of blind spots, and I would inadvertently hurt her. And you know, when you're in somebody's member of somebody's family, you kind of want it to feel like home to you. So it has been a real growth opportunity for me, and I'm really glad to be better at it. Still working at it.
Sure.
Yeah. So goodness gracious. So that's an incredible story, Susan. Thank you for sharing, and remind me, just what's your position now, and what's your role and responsibility regarding to hiring and promoting people, some of whom could be women?
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur, and I have been since I guess I would say 2011. Yeah, 2011 is when I started my entrepreneurial journey, and as most entrepreneurs go, it's usually not one thing. There's a couple of things that you're kind of dabbling in, and then something kind of takes hold, but it usually splits off in a direction you didn't anticipate. I don't think anything ever goes exactly to plan, but you know, directionally it goes the direction that you.
My friends in the special forces say, no plan meets first contact.
Yeah, that's very true.
Survives first contact, rather.
Yeah, as soon as you plan, as soon as you make a plan, it's already changed. So that is that's just the general, but plans are still necessary, of course.
Yes. If you don't plan, you don't know what you want.
So today I'm an owner of a company. I guess the broad brush of it is that I'm an internet marketer, and we, myself and my partners, we do various, we're involved in businesses in various industries. My core effort today is in the recruitment of professionals that are military veterans, law enforcement veterans that are looking for work in private security. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the immediate goal for these folks. But my ultimate goal with this is to present this transitional opportunity into the corporate sector. Mm-hmm. It's just, I think people look at the field of security as something very different from the rest of the corporate sector. Mm-hmm. And the fact is that it is very high in demand, and there is a lot of need for skilled people, not just in the security sector, but for anything that's very real world, where that requires somebody that has experience that can't be learned in school. And then there's a certain period of time that you can gain certain kinds of knowledge that cannot be gained if you didn't gain it earlier in life. Wow. And there are very few fields like that. I think the military is one of them. You know, you could be a scholar, and there are many merits to being a scholar. But if you're, you know, past a pretty young age, if you're past 40, you're not going to be able to go back now and start a military career. So, you know, those types of things.
Very physical.
Exactly. And there was just things that just cannot happen anymore in that regard versus, you know, I might pick up and say, I want to be an engineer. Yeah, it's a little late in the game for me to go retool myself, but I can absolutely go down that path. I can learn anything. But one thing you can't do is go back and gain experiences that were meant for a certain segment, you know, a certain age group. Mm-hmm. At that point, it's gone. Yeah. And these guys bring this back. These guys and girls, they bring it back. Mm-hmm. And it's beyond just, you know, I think, you know, culturally we look at it and look at the military as, you know, just people who are shooting, pulling, you know, operating weapons. And then we look at the ones that are like, oh, well, you were an intelligence officer, so there's, you know, a job for you here, or you were somebody who did something in cybersecurity, so that makes sense here. But then there was the majority of the military. It's something like 80% of the military, they're in the combat arms, and it's very hard in their to take their hard skills and say, where does it go in the corporate sector? Mm-hmm. They almost have to say, okay, well, we're not going to say it this way, thanks for your service, but you're going to close that chapter because there's no place for that here. And you're going to have to relearn a new set of skills, but we do appreciate the soft skills that you have, mm-hmm. Like leadership and everything else that you have, which is valuable, but those hard skills have a place too. So that's really what my company does now. Is we're kind of a career, besides helping place these guys, we are advising them on, you know, the right career paths that are open to them beyond just, you know, the things that are very obvious. And once we get their foot in the door with these, you know, corporations, and these are some of the largest corporations in the U.S. and in the world, you know, we are able to showcase them doing what they do best. Mm-hmm. Instead of starting from scratch on a new skill. Like if you could be the person who protects Twitter's CEO, because there was a threat against him by ISIS to kill him and his family, and you have somebody who's going to protect him, you're going to be very intimately close to this person doing what they do best. Their soft skills and hard skills showcased at their very best. You're going to get to learn about this person's personality, what this person is like, how they think, and that will start to change, you know, these decision makers, at least the way they think about these types of people. And it still may just be in security, but until you are around it all the time, it's really hard to appreciate the entirety of that value. And so that's the type of stuff that we're able to do. And so their responsibilities can expand, and then they can start to learn a new skill while they were in a position that was already utilizing, their greatest strengths.
Their greatest strength. Yeah. Yeah. I get that. So, well, good. And, we live in such a contentious world that I can see the need for that.
Oh, it is very high in demand. I think people are often surprised at the type of employers and the type of clients that, talk to us and request, security.
Okay, let me kind of dial into the people that you all hire and place who are women and persons of color. I'm my singular expertise is really with I've worked in military systems on the engineering and system development side, on the technology side, throughout a big chunk of my career. Then I went to telecom and the back-end systems for stock clearing firms, very male-dominated cultures and companies. And I learned how to be really good with working with men so that they respected me and didn't give me any guff. They knew that I knew how to play and that I had spine and I was solid for my word. So those are the kinds of things that I help women step into, because those communication styles are very different, and it really makes all the difference for women who want to be a regular woman, like they all always have been, with their friends, but they want to be able to expand their communication repertoire and their personal power repertoire to be taken seriously and respected when they're working with men at high levels. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about what you see in the women that you would place versus the women that you don't see a potential to place in some of the placements that you have.
Well, I can kind of tackle this from two different sides. The first one is what I do today with security contracting. There's actually a lot of demand for women for a whole host of reasons. There's a high demand for women because there's just not a lot of women with the experience in security. If you just look at how many people are in the military or in law enforcement that are women, it's just a smaller percentage. For one, it just doesn't interest women. It's not a matter of whether they can make the cut or not. They're not interested. It's just not from the recruitment side. So right from the top, there's less. And then it's the toughness of getting through as well. And there's just people that are going to be cut out for it and some people who aren't. But the women that do come into the security sector who want to continue on from their military and law enforcement experience, everyone that has applied and look for job placement through us has been stellar, far above and beyond a lot of their male counterparts that have applied. Now, the proportions are so different, though. I mean, we're talking about one woman might apply for every, I don't know, maybe 5,000, maybe more. I mean, it's just such a disparity.
A fraction of a percent. Yeah. What are the qualities of that makes those women successful? A, that makes you think that they will be successful, and B, what turns out to help them be successful once they're placed?
I think the thing in this particular field is that we're very, very clear that you better bring the expertise to the table that we say you need to have before you even think about applying. And I think numbers really help for one, but two, like the women that do end up applying, I think that kind of intimidates people all around. Okay, well, I want to make sure that these are meeting the skill sets, because these are not entry level jobs. The women that do apply, the women just tend to have clean backgrounds. The guys have checkered pasts a lot of times. And when I say checkered, it's like, oh, they might have a DUI. Now that's going to prevent them from having a security clearance. So, there's all sorts of issues there. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily make you a bad person, right? Like there are mistakes.
It's a disqualifying thing. I've had secret and higher clearances. I know what they look for.
Sure. So, the women just tend to keep their nose clean. They have like all their paperwork is all good to go. They were good about putting their resume together in a way that really showcases the fact that I'm looking for this type of job and I have tailored my resume around that. I think the attention to detail on these ladies, for one, just in the process piece, it has always been stellar. And the other piece has been, they are tough ladies that are applying. They absolutely deserve the position that they're in. There is no quota that we adhere to at all, because it's not that kind of a field. It's if you have the qualifications, you get in. Of the women who have applied, I think every one of them has been hired. I think every one of them is just not a lot of them.
When you say they are tough ladies, I'd love for you to kind of chunk that down into what are the characteristics that make people say she's a tough lady and I like it. Great.
Well, there's a little bit of inside knowledge of knowing what these organizations are like. So, for example, if I see a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, female, we also ask for a picture so you can physically see how tough she is. You see it in her face. You can just see hardness in somebody's face. And then the positions she's been entrusted to, like you can read a military resume, at least if you were in the military. I worked for ExxonMobil at one point, and I remember they put so much effort into their hiring, but even they had a hard time understanding, is this a good military resume or is it not? What do these experiences really, really mean? Because it all sounds stellar. And it takes a second for somebody who served to take a look at it and say, yeah, this was kind of standard path. This was not, this was exceptional. And the kind of positions that this, like I'm thinking about this particular Marine that I'm giving as an example, she held positions of authority, but it was in units that had no interest in having a quota, meeting a quota, because that sort of thing can be met when you take the branch of service as a whole, or maybe the division as a whole, but there are certain areas there's no exceptions to that. So, just by looking at the billets that she's been selected for, getting peer reviews from people that have served with these people that I'm talking about, just stellar. They don't ask for anything. You always know when you're dealing with someone really stellar, because they are not asking for anything. They don't feel entitled to anything because they know they've earned it. They are very prompt about responding. They don't ask for any concessions. They don't ask for anything. They ask for nothing. And that's kind of the hallmark sign to me of just a good candidate in general. But that's every woman that has applied, that has made the cut. I just know I kind of I have no interest to just put a woman in a place just because we haven't had enough. No, I know that when these women, I
don't speak to anybody who does, because
it's really annoying.
Yeah,
it's really annoying when I do hear things like that. But I know when they get to where they're going to be they'll really be representing themselves quite well in the units that they go to.
So you said two words that I'd love to dive into just a little bit more. You said you could see the toughness in her face. What are the qualities that make you say, "Ooh, she's tough"?
It's really in somebody's eyes. You can really tell, even in a photo. Honestly, it helps to have a little bit more information besides that. But you can just tell there's a certain level of seriousness and focus in somebody's face. When you couple that with their experiences of what they've done, and having some insight into what those things are, you just know, like you can almost kind of, like a film strip in your head, see the things that person had to do, and like it comes through in their eyes. So that level, obviously being very in this space very physically fit is very important. It's incredibly important. I mean, you cannot be, especially as a woman, in the military, there was like when I remember when I was in, I always would say, you know, you have to be perfect every day. You cannot have a day where, oh, my stomach hurts or something, I'm sick. It better be, if you don't get that sort of liberty, I mean, you have to be better than everybody as best as you can. And that's got to happen every day, because the day that somebody sees you walk is the day that somebody says, oh, that woman, I bet she walks all the time. And so, you know,
run, right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Walk instead of run. Is that what you mean?
Right. Exactly. So, you know, I don't think that that's necessarily the hardest thing in the world, though. You know, on the flip side, I would say that there are men who are amazing men that I have had the privilege to work with in the military that have earned everything that they have gotten, and it's well deserved. So, you know, it's just, everybody has their own challenges, but when, you know, to get to that, to answer your point or your question about, you know, what really comes off as, you know, what makes somebody look tough or look hard. It's a combination of things, but you can definitely see it. And physical fitness is a very big piece of it. We would always say, you know, at West Point, when we were doing leadership development, the easiest thing to change about and alter about a person, about a human being, is their physical development. You know, developing your physical body, losing weight, being fit, doing things of fitness. Yes, it takes a lot of discipline, but that is the easiest of all the other things. Emotionally developing yourself, mentally developing yourself, those are far harder things to do spiritually. So, you know, it is it's kind of a superficial thing. You know, if you don't come to the table being physically fit in this field, it's a notch down.
Okay. Yeah, I totally get that. So in the earned it part, I think that in addition to the physical, the earned it part might be where the mental, emotional, spiritual development really kind of shows up more. Am I guessing right?
Yes, for sure. What I have found is, and this is just my opinion, what I have seen is that the women that I have come across in my career, and there haven't been a lot. I've always been in male-dominated careers, but the women that I have known that have been top performers against their same peer group, they are untouchable. They are so stellar because they have achieved the positions that they have because they were just as good as all the other guys, but better to get the same level. And they'll never complain. They'll never complain. They will never be outspoken about anything. They don't want to call attention to themselves. In fact, that's how they got to the positions that they're in.
And when you say never complain, it's that they don't complain about the things that they have to do, like this is too hard and yada da da da, like that. Is that what you mean?
Or anything. Even if there is perceived, you know, unfair treatment or true unfair treatment, it wouldn't really even matter. They just don't. They just become better. And those have been the women that I have seen, that when you see somebody, you know, really succeed in that regard, you know, they don't want that special recognition, but what you do notice about their quality is they're so well-rounded compared to the equal male peer at that level. On the flip side, unfortunately, there are these huge swaths of women who don't necessarily, and I think men too, but I did, in what I've seen, a lot of positions, especially in the industries that I've worked in, women are placed into positions and they're kind of the squeaky wheel. And there's a large population of them that will get to a position because they didn't necessarily earn it, but it was something that was forced. And so there's the kind of this, I think that there are people in the middle, but it's kind of this reverse bell curve. And you've got these two ends of the spectrum. And the ones that are really successful are so successful that, I mean, they're just beating their male peers. The ones that are on the other end of the spectrum that are, you know, just not performing, there's a lot of those there.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, when I'm like, when I run up against something that, some guy is doing that I consider to be, like out of school, crosses a boundary for me. I'll give you an example. I was in our town a couple of Independence Days ago. We've had this like local Facebook group, and there was this fellow and his wife. I'd met them online, and they were lovely. And there are a whole bunch of us who were gonna finish the float that we were doing for the Independence Day parade on there that morning pretty early. So we're going there, and we do the normal A-frame hug. As we're finishing that hug, his hand slips from my shoulder down and gives me the double pat on the derriere. I don't complain. I grabbed his arm like a fight. So I shoved my face into his. I slapped his hand around on my back above the waistline. I said, "This is the extent to which a gentleman limits the roam of his hands. Now show me what you got on this float." And he did. And we've been great friends ever since. I had a big need a few months later. He was there for me.
Sure.
So I'm presuming that the squeaky wheel kind of thing that I don't do because it's completely ineffective and makes you look weak is not, that's not meaning or tell me if it is meaning in the military world that women don't do anything about having their personal boundaries crossed, for example.
I think that, I don't think, as a rule, I don't think it's an acceptable human behavior to just be a jerk. Right. I think that people shouldn't be that way. But when it does, if you're thinking about your own personal growth, then you've got to know that the world is a tough place, and you're either going to be tougher or you're going to make somebody else solve your problem for you, and that is going to do nothing for you. And so, what do you want? What do you want to be out of this? Because is this person going to be somebody that has won over you and now you need outside help, or can you figure out how to be better than this person? And that's the only question that anybody has to ask themselves. And I don't think that men or women are have a monopoly on mastering this. So, I think it's a problem for many people that, so many people want their problem solved by somebody else.
By somebody else, yeah.
And I think that's the thing that, I would encourage anybody to think like, if you want to be better or be in a better position, there is no better way to do that than don't look at how fast somebody else moves up because of, what they've done or, who they know or anything like that. If you're becoming a better person, it'll all shake out in the end. It's an investment in yourself and your character. So there's no shortcut to that. There is none in the world. So you're either going to be tough or you are going to be weak, and that's going to come to bear on you later in life if it doesn't immediately. And then the other piece of this whole thing is then if you're in a position of leadership, and you have people that work for you, that's a totally different type of a position. If somebody comes to you and complains, if they were my family, I'd say learn how to be tough. But in a position of leadership, there's a culture you're developing. So, there's multiple ways to deal with each of these problems. When something personally affects me and me only, I choose to be tough. When something is brought to my attention by somebody who I lead, or I'm entrusted, I've been given the privilege to lead, then I will do what is within the letter of the law, what is appropriate, what is the culture that we're upholding, and I adhere to that, and we're responsible for that as leaders. So it's very different approaches, but yeah, I think in my head it's much more preferred that everybody just kind of is tough about things, but it's not how things can be all the time.
Right. And that toughness is a big part of what I teach. I don't call it that when I'm doing some marketing kind of thing, because there are very few ladies who use that as a word that they aspire to. but it makes all the difference for them when they get there. So it's kind of the gift on the other side of doing the work.
Yeah, and you don't know it until those moments come, and you won't. There's no way to know it. There's no way to even talk about it because there's no context to understand it. You won't understand it until you go through these things.
Right,
so it's just one of
go
those.
Go through it and fail and think, how can I do better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's and repeating the failure cycle is like the worst thing you can do.
Sure.
Indeed. So, well, this is great. Let me look back and see what. I grew up in a military family, so my father was a mechanic, a flight mechanic, for the U.S. Navy. So, he wasn't in hot battle, but he was around it.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think I'm good, and I love that never complain. Take action. Do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the way to approach everything in life. And the thing in business, especially when we're talking about business or anything in life, I don't care who the person is on the other side. If you're really offering something, even if they're selfish people, if you have something to offer that is of value to them, they're going to want you on their team.
Mm-hmm.
And, all these years, I've never experienced a pay gap. If anything, I know that when I worked in the corporate sector, I've been paid more than my male peers. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back for that in particular. But, if you just think of it just logically, somebody, a company wants to be profitable. And if what you bring to the table is absolutely going to be profitable to the company, or, your attitude or whatever brings that value to the team, they're going to want you on that team. So, that's the way that I view everything is I am worth, I don't want to be, first of all, on a team. If it's, I won't fight to be on a team that I know has a terrible culture. So it doesn't even bother me if somebody, says anything sexist or anything like that. It doesn't bother me at all. Mm-hmm. I've built myself enough options by just working hard. And what's great about it all is by being tough, at the end of the day, you get to be surrounded by tough people because all those people, they want other tough people on their team.
Yeah.
And that is very, very, very rewarding
yes,
to work with great people. Because money at the end of the day, I mean, it can come and go, but, where does your time go? And I'd rather spend it with the people that matter and the people that, I want to build and cultivate a life with.
Right. I totally get that. And it makes your life richer and more wonderful to be around people who are, have got great character and are always looking for how to solve that next problem, because it's so much better than looking in the rearview mirror and whining and complaining about it. Oof. So good. Well, anything else?
I know I think there were some topics that you had written. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about those, but I think, if you're good with everything we've talked about, that's fine for me. I was, there were some questions about the silent professionals piece, but I don't know how you were putting your podcast together, so I'll let you, kind of run it from here.
Yeah. It's and this really is for a blog post that I'm writing. I've got a podcast that's coming along as well. So, but if you're fine with this going out on the podcast, I am too.
Sure. Yeah, okay. That's good.
Wonderful. I usually put pictures with that. Can you send me a picture of you?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Absolutely. I'll put a little, a picture of both of us together, and that will be the one visual that they get.
All right. Great.
Wonderful. Well, what can I do? You've been so generous and helpful. What can I do for you?
I guess I don't really have anything that comes to mind. I don't know. I don't even really know what your blog page is. Can you tell me what it is?
Yeah, it's dorothykuhn.com. DorothyKuhn.com/blog.
Okay. Oh, you're in Denton.
I am. Where are you?
Well, I'm in Virginia, but I lived in Houston for 10 years, and I go back there, a few times a year. So I really love Texas.
Oh, isn't it a great place?
Yes, it is.
It really is. I love it. And when I graduated from university here, I went to work in North Alabama, working missile systems, and then I just had to come back to Texas.
Yeah, it's a hard place to leave.
It is. It is. It is. So good. Yeah. So for me, if some of these companies that you that retain your services, like the Twitters of the world or something that way, one of those are people who will hire the kind of men and women that you bring to the table, who are really tough and never complain, and that's completely appropriate there. But for their regular staff, the problem that I solve for those companies, and particularly the HR people, is that when women know how to respond powerfully in the moment, not complain, take care of it, act like the full grown-ups that they are, and move on, let it go, then those are hours that get put back. Those are productivity hours that get put back, not just on that woman's calendar, because she's not spending time whining and complaining and kvetching to herself, oh, I should have done this and that, which we've all known people who have done that. But the HR people don't have to get in the middle of those interpersonal things, which is uniformly the least favorite thing for HR.
Yeah. I've always had a hard time understanding, I think ExxonMobil was my first corporate experience, and and like a lot of these women were coming out of these fantastic schools. I was really impressed by their pedigrees, but it was just and maturity wise, they were definitely more mature than their male peers, but performance wise, it was hard for me. I was like, if I had to blindfold myself and I had to judge somebody's work on just the quality of their work, I was going to choose their male counterpart every single time. And a lot of it had to do with just their confidence kind of ripple affected into their decision-making process. And it would give you a substandard, analysis or product, and they didn't take those risks or whatever those things are, that enable you to think bigger. They just weren't risk takers. They were very almost meek in their thinking, and it came out in their work. And that's really something that I couldn't really quite understand, how they could go to these, high pedigree schools and come out and underperform against their male peers, who seem so much more immature, otherwise socially immature. But yeah, I think socially, part of the reason why I probably didn't understand it as much is I didn't have the same social construct growing up. And it was just like a tough world that I had to live in. And so there was no princess or, anything like that. There was none of that growing up. It was just, it wasn't even about trying to do what the boys did. It was never about that. It was not even a comparison, because it was just survival.
Yes.
And I think people are just so wrapped up around gender and all this stuff. And then it just doesn't matter where they stand on the issue. It just makes them it just destroys people's confidence.
Yes.
And I just think that a lot of women, especially the younger generation, as it gets more and more so, they're just lacking this confidence.
Yes. And I see that quite a lot in this younger generation. And then I see some of them who are just really tough, which is great, but not enough.
Yeah, definitely. It's
good. Yeah. And getting that meek thinking out, and that is so often, that is acceptance seeking behavior. Am I accepted here? Am I accepted here? Am I accepted here?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And I'm like, why? And people will literally ask that, and I'll be like, why are you asking? It's good. It's good. Why do you have to ask every single time? You know, if you're wrong, then there's no better way to learn than to be wrong. And just, you know, you've done your due diligence, go with it, be confident in it. You know how to back up and build your case, go with that. And then you'll learn something along the way. If you second guess yourself, now I've learned from it, not you know, and it's just, I couldn't understand. I would tell these people who would come to me every single time, just the girls that would come to me, and I'd say, just you're good. You're totally good. I'm not just saying that, just you're good. And they could just get their confidence shaken so much. And I couldn't figure out why they just couldn't get it together.
Yeah. And when you've been, you know, these phones that these younger people have had, that where that online bullying is so invisible to parents, and they're young and they don't know how to handle it, the level of anxiety within the younger generation is huge compared to the generation before cell phones and the ability to cyber.
I think so, but I really blame the parents. I mean, I really think it's a parental problem, because, you know, I had ruthless bullying. I mean, people try to cut me with razors. I mean, there was every single day there was a fight. I never once went down that direction of, you know, people made. I mean, it was brutal. Everything that you could see on the news today was happening, but it was just never. There was something greater to a value. It was hard, sure, but my mind never crossed into these areas of, you know, take my own life or any of that. It's because what I had around me was strength. And so I was, without trying to be, I was stronger because of what was around me. And that was, I have brothers that are looking out for me, who are going to not eat because they want me to have the extra piece to eat, or my parents doing that for me. And so we do it for each other. And so there's bigger things to worry about than somebody, even though it hurts and it affects you and you're worried about it and you're stressed about it, with people, but there was something else that was more pressing. And parents really, you know, give you those values of, you know, what's important in life. And these kids can be bullied. And I do think it's brutal, but you need to be able to survive it. The world is a rough place, and it's only going to get rougher, especially with the internet being what it is. So make better decisions. Stop feeling like, you know, the world is going to end, and like get something bigger to focus on. You know, there are much bigger values that you can espouse for yourself, and like and just put your focus in a different direction. And parents aren't giving that to their kids, maybe because the parents themselves don't have it. And I think that, I mean, everything comes downhill. If the kids are having problems, it's coming from the parents.
Yeah, water does flow downhill. That's right. Yeah, my parents sent my brother and me to take some Taekwondo classes for a couple of years when we were in high school together. We're just like a year and a half apart, and you know, it was absolutely life-changing in a good way for me, because I went from being, you know, that kid who was told like a zillion times, be careful, watch out, be safe, blah, 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 all those things that kind of knit in your psyche, to somebody who, even so, I'm like a really skinny kid back then. You know, I was like 5'9" and I weighed 110 pounds. So really, really skinny, but I was fast. And I knew that I could handle myself, and it made all the difference in my ability to be confident.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you've got something to fight for, then everything will take care of itself. But you need that solid foundation. The only people that I really feel sorry for, the people I really feel sorry for, are the people who have been born to parents who never cared to have them to begin with, and they had no right to really be a parent, to be honest with you. And you know, they're neglectful. They, you know, abuse their children. You just didn't get the foundation to be strong. I believe that to be the case. But otherwise, if family claims to be well balanced and healthy and successful and everything else, and the child is not, well, I'm going to tell you, every single time you can look at the parents and it's their fault. I don't even care what the students in the school are doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because where else but home are you going to learn to be tough?
That's exactly right. That's the only thing that you can give to your children is their values and judgment, and everything else the world is going to bring what it brings.
You bet, you bet. And you know, the world is a messy place.
Yeah, absolutely. So
indeed. So if since we're wrapping up here, what's the one thing that you would really suggest to women who are interested in toughening up and want to know how can I do that? What would you tell them?
I think the thing that I would say, and this is only coming off the experience of all of the collective women over time that have, you know, come to me for essentially what ends up being mentorship or, you know, just asking for advice. There's always this, get the habit out of your head, the language out of your vernacular to always say, oh, it's like a boys club, or, you know, it's like men, or it's so unfair that men do this and women, like, get that out of your head. I would be really annoyed if a man said that to me. It's like, have you ever been a woman? If you haven't, you don't know what it's like to be in my shoes. At the same time, I'm not going to say those things to a man because I have never been a man. What I did have in my experience, and I would tell this to all these women, is, can you imagine being in the military in an elite unit? So just say white male, and that's like, you know, there's a lot of them in the military, and you're in an ultra elite unit, and, you know, you are, by any stretch of the imagination, you are just, you know, an elite person. Well, there's another elite person next to you, and that person, they have to distinguish themselves too. And can you imagine what it's like to have to perform at that level of responsibility every single day? You don't know what it's like. And these guys are ruthless to each other, absolutely ruthless. And they judge each other on the smallest things as well. And I looked at that and I thought, my goodness, I have to be good at my job in the military. I need to be at least physically more fit than all the other men in my unit. You know, that's how I saw it. But as long as I was physically fit and could do my job well, I was like a rock star. Mm-hmm. If those things were the same thing for a man, he would be what's expected. So, mm-hmm. you know, just, that's an example. I use the military as an example just mm-hmm. because it tends to be a little bit more structured and black and white, or easier for people to understand, even if they haven't served. Mm-hmm. So, you know, understand that is what I would say mm-hmm. to women. Don't pretend to know what it's like to be a guy. Don't say they're lucky. Don't say it's so unfair, because you don't know what it's like to be a man. And if a man ever says it to you, just take it and, you know, understand the kind of person he is. He sees the world in a very small, narrow way. And his opinion doesn't matter. So, you know, just be tough. Get that language out of your head, because, you know, men have a different perspective. And the other sense, what I want them to think differently is that for all the things you think are a disadvantage, how can they be an advantage? You know, if I go into a room as an Asian female, there is this perception that I will be meek and that I'm going to be submissive and I'm just subordinate, and I can fulfill all those roles. And in fact, I'll run with that if that's what you think. You know, because you will give me a lot of information, and by the time you realize that I'm actually dangerous to you, it's too late. I have more information about you than you do about me. Yes. And that is an extreme advantage if you look at it that way, you know, versus, you know, my husband is 6'4". He's a big guy. He's larger than life. Everybody wants to be his friend when he walks into a room. Yeah. And so he doesn't necessarily see the stuff that people want to hide, right? They want to show him the best side. If you're a woman and you get to see maybe the worst sides of where, you know, what somebody could potentially be, mm-hmm. then embrace that. At least you know that early on, and there's value to knowing that. Yeah. So look at things. Out how to turn it around. Exactly. There's value. Look at everything that you think is a disadvantage today and see how that is an actual advantage for you, because everybody, it's just a matter of this person, what is a disadvantage to you? It could be an advantage to you, but that male counterpart, has other things going against him too. What you're perceiving as an advantage is also a disadvantage to that person, and vice versa. So, you just need to shift your perspective and stop looking at it like there are, party lines drawn, and look at improving yourself. Stop focusing on the outside. But I grew up doing Taekwondo too, because my father taught me since I was 4. He was a master. And so of course, being not having any, money growing up, that was going to be what we learned. And very early on, he taught me a lesson in fighting. And he said, and it was in a tournament that when I was 9 years old, and he told me that he was, when I was sparring, and I was good back then, even at that age. And so then he said, but he expected perfection. Nothing was ever really good enough. So he said, you're always looking at people's weaknesses and trying to exploit people's weaknesses when you fight. And, a lot of people will talk about it that way. And he says, and so he told me he drew a line, and he told me to make the line shorter. And, I kind of cut it up into a couple pieces, and he redrew the line and drew a line next to it. That was 5 times the length. And he told me, by doing that, I've made the other line look shorter without having to do anything to it. And it's the same thing in when you fight. And it's the same thing in what you do in anything in life, is that the amount of time you spend to take a look at the other person or the situation, and what you're doing is you're cutting that line up into pieces. Instead, you need to look at yourself and how you can improve every aspect of yourself, every single aspect. And this will be a lifelong thing. You'll never finish doing this, but improving in every possible way where you're perceiving maybe there's a weakness, or that just needs more experience, more strength. Any one of those things. You'll never have enough time to do it all. So when you do that, and you won't even look at the outside, you probably won't even notice anymore, because you'll have far outgrown the capabilities that person had, just because you are better than that person. That person's not even a blip on your radar anymore. And I find that was a life lesson then, and it has just been the thing that I've lived by ever since he told me that. And that's really the key to success. And it is the only way to live. And it's much more fulfilling to live that way.
I totally get that. Yes, indeed. I remember being challenged by a bird colonel. One time I was given a readout on the algorithm work, high-level mathematics kind of stuff that I was a part of a team that we're doing. And he just it was for radar systems. He said, I was about 2 minutes into the talk, and he said, we don't believe the range, don't you? I just looked at him hard. I knew that I could not look weak in that moment. And I knew that I could not disrespect my customer and an officer in the U.S. military. And I had to go deep to find and take a couple of breaths. And I just turned around and said, I've got range in my data, and went on with my presentation. And, he didn't bother anybody else all day. He wanted to know what I was made of. I don't even know if he had degrees in higher mathematics. How could he be assessing the quality of our work? His proxy was to challenge.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, what is he going to do? Dive into the details that 10 people have spent months working on? No, doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So anyway, well, this has just been extraordinary. And I will, if you can send me a picture of, your professional headshot, I will use that, and it'll go up, and I'll include it in the blog post. I have just enjoyed this so much. Thank you.
I appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
You bet. And if there's ever anything that I can do for you, are we connected on LinkedIn?
I don't think so.
Let me see. Are you Susan Cho or Susan Gonzales there?
Susan Gonzales.
Okay. Benefits, house, program manager, evaluation, directory, Pearson, Furniture Mart. What's your LinkedIn handle? Mine is simple if you want me to give you mine.
I think it's just, yeah, why don't you just tell me yours and then.
Yeah, let me go grab that real quick. It's, I thought I had it here. Here we go. It's Dorothy A. Kuhn. It's just my first and last name with my middle initial A in between.
Okay.
I was trying to remember if I put a period on each side of the A or not. Because I do that for some of them, you know, if the Dorothy A. Kuhn is already taken. Like, yeah, Skype or something.
Okay, I see you. All right.
Very good. Well, that'll come across in a moment. And you use your same email address that that I have.
Yes.
For this. Okay. So we'll connect that way, and I will let you know when that goes live. And if there's ever anything I can do for you or somebody that you know, then you know I'm delighted to help. And let me know what I can, you know, help you with.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.